Cross-country mountain bikes versus trail mountain bikes. It's a very popular discussion topic, and yes, we're going to go there again. Now this one's going to be a little bit different. A while ago I made a video comparing cross-country and trail bikes, but I really honed in on the technical differences between the two. I did talk about ride qualities and which situations warrant each kind of bike, but this one I'm going to go out and do a cross-country lap and compare the lap times of each bike. Perhaps you're still trying to decide which one of these types of bikes is going to be best for you. Maybe you want the versatility of a trail bike, but you don't want to be too slow on cross-country trails. Or you may ride with people on cross-country bikes and want to know how much slower you're going to be on a trail bike. Well, this video hopefully will help you decide which bike is going to be the best for your type of riding style. Cross-country bikes are designed to go fast, so it's obvious to me that the cross-country bike is going to be faster in this test. But how much faster? Trail bikes today are designed to go downhill and have a lot of fun, but also get you up the climbs in a pretty quick manner. And honestly, they still are a lot of fun on cross-country trails. So the loop that I'll be doing for this test is one that's used quite a bit on my local trails for races throughout the year. It's fairly rolling, it's constantly up and down. Nothing sustained though as far as climbs or descents. It's kind of rooty and it's fairly twisty. It's one that requires a lot of acceleration, and that's where cross-country bikes really come in. They accelerate so fast. So I'm going to wear my GoPro when I do this, and I'll film just a portion of the lap, probably right in the beginning. I may try to turn it on in the middle. But at the end of the lap, I'm going to talk through kind of what I felt when I was doing the laps on these bikes. These are the bikes I'll be using for this test. I've done comprehensive reviews on both of these bikes, which I'll link in the description below if you want to see those. The Niner RKT9 RDO is probably the fastest cross-country mountain bike I've ever thrown a leg over. I have beat all of my Strava times on this bike. This is a purebred cross-country race machine. It's a carbon frame, got Stan's carbon Valor wheels, Fox suspension, Shimano drivetrain and brakes. This bike comes in just a hair under 23 pounds. And the trail bike for this test is a classic modern trail bike, the giant Trance Advanced 1. Carbon frame with aluminum rear end, carbon wheels, dropper seat post, same brakes, Shimano shifters. Both of these are a 1x system, so it's got 1 chainring in the front, 11 in the back. Again, both of these bikes are just perfectly suited for the category that they're designed for. I'll also link in the description below the cross-country versus trail bike video that I did, where I really went into the technical differences between these two styles of bikes. Now, like I said, I will be doing these tests on 2 different days, but I'm going to do them at the same time of the day. I have trails right behind my office at work, so I'm going to do these at lunchtime, so I should be about the same physical condition. I'm going to try to eat the same thing, make everything the same, so that I am totally fresh for each of these laps. All right, I'm taking the trail bike out the first day. It takes me a little longer to get used to the handling of the trail bike than it does the cross-country bike. So I'm doing about a 20-minute warm-up, and I got to start my lap. So I'm not expecting my best lap times out of this because I'm in my off season in terms of racing. So I haven't been doing serious training or intervals or stuff like that, but I have been riding, so I am reasonably fit for this test. Bikes, I'm going to run the rear shock in the middle setting. I may open up the cross-country bike because it has a remote lockout, so on the downhills I'll probably open it up a little bit. So quick to just switch it back and forth. On this trail bike, I'm just going to leave it in the middle setting. In the fork, I'll leave in the middle setting on both bikes the entire test. Pulling up to the start, I'm just going to roll the camera for about a minute into each of these segments. You don't want to see the whole thing. And I'm going to use my stopwatch. It is a Strava segment, but I'm going to do a slow rolling start. I've got a marker here that I use. And here we go. All right, get this thing up to speed. Corners are slippery. Pine straw slippery. It's all good. Climbing. Not too steep. Was 14 minutes 7 seconds, and I felt slower than it actually turned out to be. On the trail bike you feel like you're going slower than you really are because it's so plush and comfortable. Kind of the same concept that you feel so much faster on a hardtail, but if you do a comparison with full suspension you're really not, at least I'm not. So you know, this bike, it takes more effort in the corners. I get a lot of traction from these tires, but like I said, it's slippery, and so it, you know, the slow back and forth turns are where this bike feels the slowest. Just feels like you really got to work it around the corners because of how long the wheelbase is and how slack the head angle is compared to the cross-country bike. So I'm going to recover for a couple minutes, and I'm going to do one more section while I'm out here. It's much shorter. I'm not even going to tell you the time that I think it is because I forgot. But I'm going to do that and then head back, and then either tomorrow or the next day come back out on the cross-country bike and do this all again. Of course, the last little section. This is what happens when you're doing a YouTube video time segment. I got a vine completely wrapped around both sides of the hub. Crap. I did stop my stopwatch though. Oh, shoot. I'm gonna have to do this segment again. Look at that. Oh, that's mountain biking. All right, so that segment was 4 minutes and 56 seconds. I cut a little bit of time off. I cut like 2 minutes off because I had to do it over because of getting the vine wrapped in the wheel. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the cross-country bike does. A few notes about the trail bike while I'm thinking about it. The faster the trail or rougher the trail, which usually always involves descents, the more alive this bike becomes. And it takes me about 45 minutes or so to really start to get my mojo back on this bike if I've been riding my cross-country bike. Like I said, it takes me a little bit longer to get used to this bike, but once I do, I really learn how to push it into the corners and maximize its ability. Nothing on this trail comes close to bringing this bike to its technical limits. So this is a cross-country type trail for sure. I almost feel a little clumsy when I first get back on this bike, but once I get used to it, it is a blast to ride. Where it feels the most sluggish is when you lose some momentum up a steep climb. Because of the slacker angles and the weight, it just takes a little bit more to get it back. So that's it for this bike. Hopefully tomorrow, if not the next day, will be the cross-country bike. Signing off for now. Okay, so this is day 2. I'm on the cross-country bike now. And I don't think I mentioned it in the opening, but the trail bike weighs a little over 27 pounds, like 27.1. So about a 4-pound difference, slightly more than 4 pounds. But I'm telling you, the cross-country bike feels so much lighter. The steering feels so quick and light compared to the trail bike because it's just made to change lines really quickly, accelerate quickly. So just, this bike feels so fast. Another thing that I want to mention is tire pressure. So we've got a ton of leaves on the trail and traction is really important right now. I'm running fairly low pressures. I'm running about 18 in the front on the trail bike, about 20, 21 in the back on the trail bike. This cross-country bike, I'm running about 20 or so in the front and about 23 in the back. And we don't have a lot of rocks, so I don't have to worry too much about my rims getting dinged. It's rooty, but I'm fairly light, so I'm gonna warm up, roll up to the start, and we'll see how the cross-country bike compares to the trail bike for these lap times. Rolling up to the start on the cross-country bike. Here we go. Here's the climb. Starts off gentle. It's a little bit steeper. All right, coming up to the end of this first lap. Okay, so 13 minutes 53 seconds, and that's definitely not a PR. I'll look back, my PR on this is about 13:09, 1 second off the king of the mountain, which is Drew Edsel. So it is a lot more slippery right now. Everything's dry, a lot of leaves down, so definitely cannot rail corners. I think trail conditions were perfect when I set my PR. So, wow, 14 seconds. Not a huge difference, but definitely faster. I do feel like if trail conditions were better, this bike would be faster, because you can go the advantage of the cross-country bike is how quick it initiates a corner, how quick you can go from corner to corner, so like S turns, and then how quickly it accelerates out of the corner. This bike is actually more fun on these trails than my trail bike. So just because a bike is a cross-country bike meant to go fast doesn't mean it can't be fun. What really matters is the trail conditions. Now up in the mountains, my trail bike is way more fun when I'm doing rough descents and just kind of letting it go. So, all right, I'm gonna kind of recover for a little bit, and then we'll do this final lap, which again, yesterday on the trail bike, this one was 4 minutes and 56 seconds. So we'll see what the cross-country bike does on this shorter section. All right, on course on the XC bike. So that one was 4 minutes and 51 seconds, 5 seconds slower than or faster than the trail bike. I'll tell you what's making it slow. It's these things, these little seeds. They're all over the trail in some spots. It's like riding over golf balls. So traction is definitely not happening right now, but that gives me a pretty good idea. So if you translate the first lap into a cross-country race that's about 2 hours long, it's about a 2-minute difference on this course. If the course involves a lot more climbing, a cross-country bike is going to pull away even more than a trail bike. But for, you know, endurance or enduro races where, you know, the elevation's dropping, that's why enduro bikes and trail bikes are so fast compared to a cross-country bike. So what I'll do is, when I get back home, actually probably in a couple days, I'll give just kind of a wrap up of this and throw in some buying tips for those of you out there who are still trying to decide which bike you want to get. So hopefully this video is kind of helping you out. All right, I'll talk to you in a day or two back at the house. All right, I'm back at my house and I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video. And I said quite a bit when I was riding the bikes using my GoPro, so I'm gonna try to keep this closing scene brief. First of all, my biggest takeaway from this test is that the trail bike ended up being faster than I thought it was gonna be. And I think there are a couple reasons for that. One, this is actually the lightest trail bike that I've owned. This is a 27-pound trail bike. That's light. That's with pedals. It is a $5,000 trail bike. Now, it's a heck of a lot of bike for $5,000. So I think it's like 48, 49 something to be exact for the retail price. But you know, it's a high-end trail bike. If it were a $2,000 trail bike, you know, all aluminum frame, alloy wheels, lower end components, heavier suspension, then yeah, you're going to see a bigger time gap in favor of the cross-country bike. And speaking of weight, I've actually noticed that 28 pounds is kind of that threshold where a bike will start to feel a little bit more sluggish and drag on the climbs. So keep that in mind. If you're looking for a trail bike, you know, I always recommend putting the money into the wheels. That's where it's going to feel the most. You're going to feel the biggest difference for your money. But I just wanted to mention that. So you know, even though the trail bike was very fast, it was a pretty high-end trail bike. The other reason why I think it was fast is because the trails were fairly slippery, a lot of leaves on the trail, and so the bigger knobs on the trail bike were able to get around the corner faster. If it was just hard-packed dirt without the leaves, then I think that the cross-country bike would have been able to go into the turns faster. The tires had a little bit less grip on the cross-country tires, even though they were 29 and the trail bike's 27.5. I still feel like I had more grip on the trail bike. Now, the course that I used was obviously fairly flat. I mean, it was constantly up and down, but it was in Florida, so it's not a long, sustained climb. On trails where you've got a sustained climb, then yeah, the cross-country bike is just going to start to really pull away. One, because it's lighter, and two, when you get out of the saddle and hammer, it's not going to wallow as much in its travel, and you're just going to get more power to the pedals. So let me give some buying advice if you're trying to decide between a cross-country bike and a trail bike, based on some of the things I've talked about in this video. The first thing, as I mentioned when I was riding the cross-country bike, just because a cross-country bike is built for racing and built to be fast doesn't mean it can't be fun. On trails that aren't as rough, the agility, the lightness of it, the way they accelerate, they're just a blast to ride on certain trails. So, you know, don't ride off a cross-country bike just because it's billed as a race bike. It's just like, you know, why drive an SUV when you can drive a Ferrari on a race course? So, you know, that's just one thing you want to keep in mind. If your trails aren't that smooth and trails aren't that rough and you like going fast, then a cross-country bike is probably going to be more fun for you. If your trails are smoother and you ride on pavement and dirt a lot on your mountain bike, so maybe you use a mountain bike as your gravel bike or, you know, riding dirt roads, then a cross-country bike is going to be a better choice. I don't ride my trail bike to the trailhead that often, so they feel pretty sluggish on dirt roads because of the weight and all the suspension travel. Now, if you want the most versatile bike that you can buy, then a trail bike I think is going to be your option, especially if you have the coin to buy a higher end trail bike. I would say that a trail bike is better on a cross-country course than a cross-country bike is on really rough trail bike type terrain. So keep that in mind. Trail bikes are probably the most versatile form of mountain bike made. And when I say trail bike, I'm talking 130 to 160 millimeters of suspension travel. So your buying choice really depends on your priorities. Is it a big deal for your buddies to wait for you 15 seconds after a 10-minute section on a cross-country course? Probably not. You know, if you're a speed freak, you just love going as fast as possible on a cross-country course. If you lose sleep when someone drops you on a climb, then you're probably going to want to go for a cross-country bike. Now, if you love descending and you don't care about your, you know, Strava times, you don't race, then go for a trail bike. You know, there is nothing like coming down a mountain on a 160, 150 millimeter travel trail bike where you're hopping down water bars, going over drops, rock gardens, root gardens, just flying down a mountain. I mean, it's just a blast. It's so much more fun on a trail bike. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. Another one comparing cross country and trail bikes. fun for me. I hope it was fun for you. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And if this style of video, this type of information was helpful for you, give it a thumbs up for me. That will help me out. Thanks for watching.